Lesson 1.1, Graphing Linear Relationships. There are three ways to graph a linear relation. 1. Make a table of values. 2. Find the x and y intercepts. Or 3. Determine the slope and y-intercept given your equation, y equals mx plus b. So first we're going to look at example 1, graph using the table of values. So depending on the equation we typically like to use for our x values, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So to find the corresponding y value, we plug in the x value where it says x in the equation. So for example, if y equals negative 2x plus 1, that's our equation. So the first value, -2, that's what we sub in for x. So -2 times -2 is +4 plus 1 equals 5. So when x is -2, y equals 5. Okay, and we continue doing the same thing all the way along. So I'm going to sub in -1 for my x. So -2 times -1 is +2 plus 1 equals 3. So when x is -1, y is 3. Okay, and you continue so on to fill in the table of values. So at x equals 0, you should get y equals 1. At x is 1, you should get y equals -1. And at x equals 2, you should get y equals -3. Now it's time to graph it. So your y-axis is always the vertical axis. Okay, this is the one that goes up and down. And your x goes horizontal across. Next you have to choose a scale. So you always want to kind of look at your maximum value for y and your minimum value for y. And here we have 5. So I'm just going to go up by 5 and I'm going to make each square count as 1. And I'm going to do the same below the axis. Okay, and below the x-axis the y values are negative. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and on the x-axis, again, the maximum is 3, but I'm just going to go to 5. Alright, so to the right of the y, x is always positive, and to the left it's negative. Okay, now let's start looking at our ordered pairs here. Alright, so x is -2, so I'm going to start over here, so 1, 2, and I'm going to go up 5. So there's my first point. I do apologize, I'm not great at this technology, so it's a little off, it might be, but I'll do my best. Alright, next is -1, 3. And then at 0, x is 1, or y is 1, sorry. And then 1, -1. And 2, -3. Okay, then you connect the dots, obviously using a ruler. Again, I apologize, I'm not great with the technology, so my dots are a little off, but do your best to draw and hopefully use a straight line. Okay, question B. So here's an example where we're not going to select our typical values for x. And that, remember, from the first example is -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Alright, because here we have a fraction in front of the x. So what we want to do is we want to select x values that are multiples of 2 to avoid the fractions. Okay, since it's 1 over 2, we want the 2. If it was 1 over 3, we'd choose multiples of 3, and so on. Okay, so here I'm going to choose -4, -2, 0, 2, 4. Okay, again, we're going to sub it into the value, for the x into the equation. So here I'm going to have 1/2 times -4 plus 3. Okay, 1/2 times -4 is -2 plus 3 equals +1. Okay, and I'm going to do the same for each of the x values. Or at least you should be doing that. I'm not going to show them all here. Okay, and before we graph, I'm going to just draw your attention to the communication errors here. Alright, these are easy marks to lose, alright, but they're easy marks to get. So we always want to label the line with the equation, which I did forget to do in section A. We want to label the axis, use a ruler and pencil, and we always show the scale. Okay, so here's my y-axis, here's my x. Okay, I'm just going to use the same scale here. Okay, now I'm going to plot my points. So when x is -4, y is 1. X is -2, y is 2. Again, this is kind of really hard to do, so I know my points are a little off, but I know you guys should know how to graph by now. 0, 3. 2, 4. And 4, 5. Okay, let's connect our dots. Next thing we need to do is label our line. So all we just do is write the equation next to the line. Okay, example 2, we're going to graph using the x and y intercepts. Okay, so at the x-intercept, y is always equal to 0, and at the y-intercept, x is equal to 0. Okay, so all we have to do is sub in the values. So for the x-intercept, we're going to use our equation here, and it tells us that y is 0, so that's what we're going to sub in for y. Okay, so we have 2x plus y sub 0 equals 12. So that leaves us with 2x equals 12, because 3 times 0 is 0. And to solve for 12, we're going to divide both sides, or sorry, solve for x, we're going to divide both sides by 2. So x equals 6. Okay, now our ordered pair then would be 6 and 0, because we know the x-intercept of y is 0. Okay, and we do the same thing for the y-intercept, but this time we're subbing in 0 for x into the equation. Okay, so then we're left with 3y equals 12. Divide both sides by 3. So y is going to equal 4. And our ordered pair, because we know what the y-intercept x is 0, and we just figured out that the y is 4. So this is a little quicker because we actually are only graphing 2 points here on the graph. Okay, so we're going to go to the graph. So we got 6, 0 for our x-intercept and 0, 4 for our y-intercept. And we're just going to connect those 2 dots here. Make a line. Oops. Okay, in example 3, we're going to graph using the slope and y-intercept. Okay, so we have the equation y equals -2x plus 1. So if you recall, the number in front of the x is our slope. Sorry, let me just erase that and try writing that again here. Okay, so in this case, remember m represents the slope, so it's -2. Okay, and the b, or the y-intercept, is the plus 1 in this case. So what you want to do is first you want to plot the y-intercept. So once you have the y-intercept, which in our case is 0, 1, right? Because x is 0 and y is 1. So we're right around this point here. Okay, then we're going to look at the slope. Okay, so we have the y-intercept, so then we're going to use slope. If you remember, slope is rise over run. So in this case, we are -2 for a rise over 1 for a run. So the -2 means that we go down 2, and the 1 means we go to the right by 1 unit. So we start at our y-intercept 0, 1. All right, tell us we go down 2 and over 1. So our next point would be at 1, -1. Again, we go down 2 and over 1. So here's our next point here. Okay, down 2, over 1. Now we can go the opposite way, but we just do the opposite. We go up 2 and to the left 1. Up 2, left 1. Then we connect our points, and usually 4 or 5 points is good. Just enough that you get the idea of what the line should look like. Again, just to finish it off, always remember that we label our line. And in this case, it's -2x plus 1. So example B here is a little different. Right? We have 4x equals 20 minus 5y. Well, we have to rearrange it. We need the y equals mx plus b form so we can tell what our slope is and what our y-intercept is. Okay, so I want the -5y, I want it over here on the left-hand side. So because it's negative over here on the right-hand side, we're going to make it positive. And I'm going to break my 4x over, so it's going to become negative 4x plus 20. Now I want y by itself, so I have to divide each term by 5. So then I'm left with y equals -4 over 5x plus 4. Okay, so that tells us that 4 is our y-intercept. Okay, and the coordinates would be 0, 4. Alright, and my slope is -4 over 5. Alright, so again, because it's negative, we're going down by 4. And right by 5. Okay, so here I'm going to go over to the graph. Right, I'm going to label my y-axis, my x-axis, create a scale, right, so 0, 0, 0 is at the origin. I'm going to use 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so again, right, first step we start with our y-intercept. Okay, and that's at 0, 4. Alright, next we're going to go down because it's -4 by 4 and over 5. So our next point is right here. And down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 over 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're out of room, right? But again, we can always go the opposite way. So we can always go up 4 and then to the left by 5. Okay, and again we connect the points. Okay, and to finish off our graph, again we label it by writing the equation next to the line. So y equals -4 over 5x plus 4. Example 4, here we have some special cases. Alright, so whenever you see like y equals 3 or y equals negative 2, that just means that you have a vertical line that goes through where y equals 3, or in case of b, y equals negative 2. So for y equals 3, we know that x is 0. So we just go up to where y is 3. Okay, and we draw our line across. And label it. Okay, same with y equals negative 2. Again, go down to where y equals negative 2, and we draw a line across. Okay, so for example C and D, we have just x equals 7 and x equals negative 5. So those are lines that go up and down. Okay? So, and sorry, those are the vertical lines. The other ones are horizontal. I think I mixed that up. Alright, so again, for x equals 7 then, we're going to go to where it says 7, and let me just get my ruler out because I'm terrible at drawing straight lines, as you can see. So I'm going to go over to where x is 7. Okay, again we draw our line. Okay, and then while I have the ruler, I'm going to go over to x equals negative 5. Draw a straight line through that. And then we just label them. So x equals 7 for this one, and x equals negative 5. Okay, so